When you go out and cast a vision, recognize that you do not decide your future. You do not decide whether or not that will be your reality. You do get to decide your habits, and your habits will decide whether that becomes your reality or just another dream.
Everything leads to growth with the National Association of Sales Professionals. The Leads to Growth podcast with the National Association of Sales Professionals provides in-depth discussions sharing the best sales, prospecting, influence, and communication skills, as well as sales training techniques to take your professional sales career to the next level.
All right, we're back again with another Leads to Growth podcast. Great to see everybody. Great to be heard by everybody. Welcome back. We have got a very special guest today. Very excited to have the man, Jeff Woods, from one of my favorite podcasts out there. One that's actually in the top 5% of all podcasts in the world. Thanks, Jeff, for being here, brother.
I appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. So for those of you who have been hiding under a rock and don't know, Jeff Woods is the vice president of The One Thing and hosts the One Thing podcast, which I mentioned just a moment ago is a monster. After hearing Jim Rohn's quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with." Love that quote. Jeff set out on a mission to surround himself with high-level CEOs and successful entrepreneurs, which he has done very, very well. Fast forward just 10 months, Jeff went from an employee to an entrepreneur, launching a company with the co-authors of the best-selling book, The One Thing. If you don't know who that is, you better ask somebody and definitely check out the book. I wish I had the actual hardcover, but I got the Audible right there. I'm definitely on it. Jeff has been featured in entrepreneur.com and is on a mission to teach people how to take back control of their time and get clarity in how they want to invest it. And I love that. Not spend your time, right? Invest your time.
Those words were very intentional.
I can imagine so. I like that. Well, Jeff, there's so much to talk about. The one thing is the message I really want to bring to our audience here, as it's had such a big impact on my life. But I'd love for you to first share your story. Looks like you had a vision, and you really put some intention and focus on that vision, and have gone through a lot of uncertainty to get to the place where you are at a very fast pace. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story, how that happened, and how you got here.
Sure. So I was, I'm a professional salesperson. Out of college, I went to work for Xerox because I was told that was some of the best sales training I could get, which I really enjoyed, learned a lot, and was really able to have a very fruitful career in medical device sales, which was absolutely incredible. I loved what I did. It afforded a wonderful lifestyle. I really liked wearing scrubs and trying to get my wife to call me McDreamy. You know, she always refused, but like that's on the bucket list. But I think a lot of salespeople can probably relate to this. If you're a top performer like I was and earning President's Club, you wake up and you've got golden handcuffs on. You find yourself asking, where else can I go and earn this type of an income without really being a business owner? And for me, that was like, oh, interesting, but would I want to be a business owner? And as I explored that, I realized, yeah, what I really want when I look forward for my life, I want to wake up owning a massive business that makes a massive impact in the world and delivers real security for my family. My challenge was I didn't know how to start one. And I got these very comfortable golden handcuffs on. So I didn't have a compelling reason to make a change.
Sure.
Two things happened in my life. First, a colleague of mine had a stroke and he was 35 years old at the time, which for me, I remember we had just bought a house in Orange County. We just had our first child. My wife's a stay-at-home mom. And I looked at her and I'm thinking, if that was me who the stroke happened to, what happens to my wife? That was not a good answer. The very next week, my company needed to make a change to our commission structure to remain competitive in the marketplace. And overnight, I ended up losing about 40% of my income. Ooh. And the challenge was my comp plan was still that good. And I was that passionate about the company and the product that I couldn't go anywhere else. And so I really felt stuck. And what happened was month after month, I just watched our bank account drain until it almost got to zero. And I found myself looking up as somebody who, being the provider is part of my identity, that was really hard when I'm asking the question, how do I keep the roof over the head? How do I pay the mortgage? And it was at that time that I heard this Jim Rohn quote, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And I remember, Christopher, I remember looking at who my 5 were.
Oof.
And going, wow, great people. I love them. And they're not where I want to be. They're not waking up every day owning a massive business that makes a massive impact in the world and delivers real security to their family. And that was the aha. I can keep them in my life. They can play the role as a friend, yet I cannot call them mentor. So I set out on a journey to surround myself with the right mentors. And very quickly, I ended up forming relationships with some powerful people. I started a podcast called The Mentee just to document literally, I was recording my private conversations with my mentors with the hope of going from employee to entrepreneur. And about 2 weeks after I had launched the show, Jay Papasan, who is the co-author of The One Thing with Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams Realty, largest real estate company in the world, Jay was our keynote speaker at my national sales meeting. And I remember sitting in the very back row, room of over 1,000 people. He finishes and he gets a standing ovation. And as everybody else sits down, my legs were locked. I was standing. And something inside me said, Jeff, you have to go talk to him right now. Yet all the limiting beliefs started to creep in. What could I possibly say to him that would make him want to talk to me? What could I give him that would make it worth his time? Yet as he started walking off stage, my heart just had a different intention. And before you know it, I'm literally running down the side of the conference room. And when his eyes meet mine, I asked if I could feature him on The Mentee just to bring more exposure to the book. And through a series of interactions where I followed up with him just to ask where they were focusing and how I could bring value. I literally brought him value 4 separate times without asking for a single thing when he finally said that he and Gary were looking for a CEO for a publishing company. And I remember I looked down at my scrubs. I'm going, that's not me. But I knew 3 people that were. And so I offered to make a connection. And when we got on the phone and he described who they were looking for, he didn't describe those 3 people. He described me. Fast forward, I've been partners with him and Gary Keller for 3 years, and I've turned their book, The One Thing, into a massive training and coaching company. And I get to wake up every single day and live my purpose.
Man, that's awesome. I love that. And I love the beautiful distinction that you made between friends and mentors, right? You don't have to get rid of these people out of your life. That would be so selfless or selfish and so short-sighted, right?
Yes.
But you do have to choose who you spend that time with, and you have to choose those 2 different roles in your life, having friends and also having mentors. And that's a big distinction. I think when I first thought this, I thought, well, I'm supposed to get rid of all my friends now, but it's not what happens. And I love that. I love that distinction that you made there. Now, tell me about The One Thing. Before you get into The One Thing and the real purpose, what is the vision behind The One Thing?
Well, I'll tell you where the book came from, and then I'll tell you the vision of our company.
Perfect order.
So you have Gary Keller. I mean, he literally started this company called Keller Williams. It was a small little real estate company in Austin, and he's now scaled it to over 180,000 people across the globe. Number 1 in the industry, truly disrupting the real estate field as we stand here today. He looked up and realized the thing that we all want to avoid is a life of regret. Unfortunately, most people are heading in that path because they live a life by default rather than a life by design. Most people wake up and spend their time. They wake up, they check their email, they live in their inbox, they go from meeting to meeting, and then try to avoid the distractions when people stop by and ask if they've got a minute. And for most people, they are so busy through the day and they end up looking at them today and going, wow, I was so busy, but did I even get anything done? That's what a life by default is. The question is, how do you live a life of extraordinary results? And those people who truly get to taste that rare air, it comes to them investing their time. Just like when you put capital in the market or in real estate, you want to hold it accountable to generating a return. Are you holding your time accountable to generating a return? This is the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. And so you have the book. It was launched in 2013. It's now one of the highest rated business books of all time. There's only 10 business books that have ever sold more than 1 million copies, and The One Thing is one of them. Wow. So Gary and Jay realized there was something here. There was a company that was here. But Gary's one thing is being chairman of Keller Williams. Jay's one thing is writing books. They needed somebody whose one thing was the one thing. Nice to meet you. So I had a conversation with my coach, and he asked me a question. What's the legacy our business will be leaving 200 years from now? And what does our organization need to look like 10 years from now to feel like we're on track? My answer was we're on a mission to transforming the way humanity views time. From where it is acceptable to wake up and live in your inbox in meetings, handling God of minutes, to one where you wake up and as a culture, we believe that you invest every second like it's your most valuable resource. Because it is. And so everything we do, from the One Thing podcast to our corporate trainings, to online trainings, to live events, to coaching, to technology, everything is in service of that mission, transforming the way people view time.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Time is just such a valuable asset. And we say often over here, what you appreciate appreciates.
There you go.
Far too often in our, especially in our industry, the people who are, as you said earlier, busy, they just don't have the appreciation of their time.
Yeah.
You know, they have that scarcity mindset. They don't appreciate it. There they find more of what they've been continuing to tell everybody that they have, which is no time.
Yeah. I was brought in for a national sales meeting for a very large medical company. Everyone would know the name of it. I can't share the name of it though. My very first slide, it just said, working long hours is cheating. I heard Gary say this in a mastermind. He looked out at the room at the top agents in the world and said, working long hours is cheating. And every head like cocked to the side like a lost puppy dog, like, what do you mean?
What?
And he said, working long hours is cheating because you can do the wrong activities. And if you hustle, if you grind, if you work hard, you can muscle your way to a result. And you cheat yourself out of what it actually means to live a life. If you want to live an extraordinary life, it requires that you be as efficient and as effective as possible during the hours that you work. And at a pre-prescribed time, you shut it down, you go and you live your life. Now, for those of you who are listening to this, you're all salespeople or sales leadership. How many of you have ever sacrificed time with your family because you had to travel for sales calls? How many of you have sacrificed your health? You know you should have been in the gym, but maybe you entertained late that night or you had an early call. We don't, sometimes most of us are failing so slowly, we think we're succeeding. On a short term, you do the wrong activities. You skip your lead generation for that one day. It feels good. It feels like you succeeded because you did something you wanted to do rather than the boring thing of generating leads. Yet over time, if day after day after day after day, you do that wrong thing, it ends up leading to catastrophe in any area of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Repetition and consistency. Those are the things that create those habits, those beautiful habits that sustain the results that we actually want. I love this concept. So here's one of the questions that I get often. Great, I've got this big, beautiful vision and I know what my purpose is in life. What do I do today? Like, how do I bridge that gap?
I wonder how many people actually feel that way. I bet most people listening to this don't.
Really?
Oh gosh, no. And this is just part of the research that we do behind this. One of the greatest questions that people have after reading The One Thing is, number one, what's my one thing? Or how do I live it in my organization? But the other is, there's a talk about purpose. And because you can't truly be productive if you don't know your priorities. You can't know your priorities ultimately if you don't know what your purpose is. Most people don't know what their purpose is. It's why we're writing a book about it.
You talk about the laws of purpose, priority, and productivity.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I don't think most people actually have a sense of what their purpose is.
Beautiful. And so where do people find that purpose?
Well, we're intentional with our words. It's about developing it, right? Starts by asking the question, what is my purpose? And in The One Thing, that we have this concept of asking big questions and searching for big answers. Challenge is most people don't ask big questions. They ask really small questions like, what are my goals for this year? What do I like to do? And they only search so far for an answer because it's such a small question. Yet when you ask a big question like, what's my purpose? You very quickly hit this wall called the I don't know. And what most people do is they shut down their thinking. They think just because they don't know, it's an excuse for stopping the search. part of the journey to enjoying extraordinary results requires that you learn to push through that. And when you don't know, you have time blocked with a pad and paper where you sit down and ask the question, if I did know, what would it be? And you search for the answers. So whether that be developing a sense of purpose, whether that be identifying, if I ask you, what are your goals someday from now, 10, 20, 30 years from now? You're the question my coach asked me. What's the legacy your company will be leaving 200 years from now?
How are you going to know you're on track in 10?
Yeah. The number one gift I have received being in relationship with Gary Keller is the gift of thinking bigger. And the only way you think bigger is by being asked bigger questions and searching for the answer.
And I love what you said there. Just because you don't have the answer this moment, it's that uncertainty that we feel when we don't have the answer that makes us go hide back into the certainty of just not knowing, right?
Right.
And it's facing that uncertainty and really lamenting, being in it and taking the time to discover and, like you said, create.
Yeah. Let's narrow it very specifically for salespeople. And this is an example in the one thing when it comes to asking bigger questions. If we just asked you, how do you exceed your quota by 10%? That, for some people, that might be doable. For some people, that's a stretch. Mm-hmm. Yet if we ask the question, this is something one of my mentors asked me when I was feeling really down about my medical job after the income cut. My mentor asked me a much bigger question. He said, how can you double your commissions working half the number of hours? What would your calendar have to look like? What would your activities have to look like if you legitimately doubled your sales working half the number of hours? And of course, my mind immediately hit the I don't know, but he challenged me to get out a pad and paper and come back with a plan for doing it. He was holding me accountable to doing it. And what was really interesting is I found a way to. So
I love that the big questions make you think outside the box. They make you actually change something as opposed to falling into that trap that you spoke about, which is if I look at this little goal of just increasing my volume or my sales by 10%, I'm going to go to that natural trap, which is, I'll just work 10% harder or work 10% longer or take 10% of my weekends and devote it to this.
Yeah. And here's the cool part of this. The activities required to achieve what we call possible goals that are so far out there that your mind immediately is like double your income in half the number of hours. That's possible realm versus doable. The activities required to achieve those results, they don't require that much more effort, if any at all. They're just different activities. You're suddenly waking up. This is 80-20 rule. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. What if you woke up and dissected your territory and asked if I could only call on accounts that were 20%ers, the 20%ers that would generate 80% of my quota? What would your business look like? The challenge is we all fall trapped to the low-hanging fruit, which almost made it into the book as one of the thieves of productivity. When it's just dangling right there in front of you, it's so easy to say yes to it. What you don't realize is that you're saying no to doing the activities that lead to long-term massive results.
I love that. We often get distracted by that low-hanging fruit, that little short-sighted gratification, when it's really the habits that sustain the long-term results. And finding that gratification, that's a very interesting thing too. Finding the gratification from here, as opposed to getting distracted from the little sale, the little, hey, there you go for bringing in a deal today. Those little things that oftentimes as a salesperson, we're put into systems that feed that little gratification. Did you get a deal today? Did you put one on the board today? Those little pieces that we get distracted with that are thieves of productivity. I love this. Great stuff, Jeff. So now that we talk about sales and we talk about the one thing, people understanding that they've got to create their purpose. So now I'm starting to understand maybe my purpose. How do I stretch my purpose into the big thing? Or if I start to understand what is it, how do I pull myself into that larger goal when I've not had that reference or models before?
Well, the first thing I would say is I'm listening to the way that it was phrased. Don't let your lack of understanding of your purpose be an excuse for getting into motion. The challenge for most people is when they think about purpose, they envision purpose as a destination they arrive at. Oh, I know my purpose. I have arrived. That's not what purpose is. We said develop your purpose, and that was intentional, because the moment you view the path to developing your purpose as a journey you go on rather than a destination you arrive at, it starts to feel attainable. What would it look like if, start by asking the question, when you do what you do, what does it do for you? Why is it that you are in the career you are in? For a lot of salespeople, it's because they have a certain personality type that affords them to be successful in that career, and it allows them to afford a certain lifestyle. That's a lot of it, right? And they end up making a lot of money, and then they struggle to find fulfillment. Yet what if you started to ask the question, what do those commissions actually do for you? Well, it allows me to provide for my family. Well, what does providing for your family do for you? Well, it allows me to give my children the types of opportunities that I'd like to have. Well, what does that do for you? Well, it really allows me to actually have some DNA in the way humanity advances. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere, right? Then all of a sudden, when you're doing the activities that maybe you don't want to make that one more call. You just got rejected. You just lost the big deal and you're feeling deflated. How can you ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And when the moment you can start to draw a line between the activities and the why is when you find this undiscovered power source that allows you to push when most people stop.
I love that. We often talk over here about outcome, purpose, action. Really setting that destination, setting that subconscious mind on the destination. And then when you get that resistance, which you naturally will, right? That the deception or resistance that's coming when you're looking to get somewhere that you've not gone before. You've got to feel that discomfort and that uncomfort. And it's the purpose, it's the reason, it's the why that gets you to make that extra step, to do that extra thing. Yeah. And that's why I love what you said too, taking the really time, because it's so easy. I'll bet you if I asked why do you do what you do, I'll bet you I get so many superficial, quick responses from people.
Yeah, you ask why 5 times. Oh, well, why do you do that? And why do you do that? And why do you do that? You'll get there. You'll get there.
Yeah, you'll get there.
You just got to go deep.
And it's in the value that to connect the two dots, the value that there is for you to stay there in that uncomfortable place until you find that why is impossible to relay to you until you get to a point when you see you're getting closer to your vision and you don't want to get up, you don't want to make that next step. And that why is the thing that gives you that next bed of energy to do so. Yeah.
So I want to make this really practical for people, because everything we do in our training is about boiling it down to the simplest 2-inch domino that you can knock over. My favorite quote out of the one thing is from F.M. Alexander. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits. And their habits decide their futures. So when you... F.M. Alexander. So if you envision your life, if we ask you, let's say I'm talking to you, the person who's listening to this, we've never met, but let's say we fast forward 5 years and we're in an airport and we end up bumping into each other. And you say, you heard this episode, and I go, oh my gosh, how's life? And you look at me and you go, Jeff, life is extraordinary. If I asked you, what is extraordinary in your professional life, in your relationships, in your health, in your finances, what does that look like? When you go out and cast a vision, recognize that you do not decide your future. You do not decide whether or not that will be your reality. You do get to decide your habits, and your habits will decide whether that becomes your reality or just another dream. One of the things that I realized, I interviewed a guy. There was an episode of the podcast. It was episode 143 and 144. It was called The Habit That Cost $100 Million to Learn and Why It Was Worth It. He literally lost $100 million. And this was the single habit he learned. It's the habit of thinking time. Time scheduled on a regular basis to stop and think. To ask questions, big, powerful questions like, if my business could talk, what would it say about me? Or for the salespeople here, if my territory could talk, what would it say about my performance? Like, to really slow down and ask the question, what's the one thing I'm not doing that if I started doing immediately would allow me to 10x the size of my territory? These are not small questions. These are big questions. And I went on what we call a 66-day challenge. It takes on average 66 days to form a habit. Now, on our website, onething.com with the number one, I clicked on free stuff. We've got a 66-day challenge calendar there. So I printed out, it's got all the 66 days on it. And every single day I sat down, asked a powerful question, and searched to find at least just one answer. It takes less than 30 seconds to go that far. And I just went on this road to asking powerful questions. It has transformed the way that I show up in my business. Because instead of moving through the day reacting, I'm moving through the day with intention and purpose. Makes it far easier to say yes to the right things and say no to everything else.
I just wanted to pause there. That is just such a powerful, powerful concept. It's so easy to get caught in the auto responses of life, right? Everything demands a response. Everything demands a reaction. Work, life, these things just keep you flowing. Yeah. And if you don't stop and just sit there and think and take the time to ask these questions and allow yourself and your brain, which we use a very, very, very small fraction of, to create these answers which you don't have now.
Yeah. You want a powerful question for most salespeople that they need to answer?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Where am I currently saying yes to things that don't matter and actually saying no to the thing that matters most? I don't know a single person that if we fast forwarded to their deathbed would say, I wish I made one more call. I wish I spent 10 more hours in the office. They will, however, think about the relationships they didn't nurture, the moments they could have shared that they didn't, the experiences they could have had but did not. So many people, especially salespeople, like, I get it. You see the deal. It's like you go in the zone. It's the carrot. It's dangling in front of you. You just want to get it. And we tell ourselves that just because we're in the room with our family and on our email that we're present. We're not actually there. So many people don't realize that they're saying yes to the thing that actually doesn't matter as much, that next sales call. And they're actually saying no to the thing that matters most. Their family, their health, their personal life, their spirituality. The good news is you can strike that counterbalance because we know working long hours is cheating. So what would it look like if you were the type of person who woke up every day with clarity on the handful of priorities that if you just accomplished those things would completely transform your business, and you did those first, allowing you to shut it down at a pre-prescribed time and actually go and be present with the people that matter most? What would that look like? That's what this journey looks like.
Beautiful. And these questions, like you say, are so big, and so they take time to sit and think about and to manifest. And it's that catch-22 that we think, oh, we don't have that time, right? I don't have that time. The more you say these words, the more they become your reality. Strike them from your vocabulary this instant.
Yeah.
Start to think about and see yourself having this time. And you'll start to see, this is one of the big things that I hear a lot is, yeah, great, this is awesome, but I don't have time for that. I got quotas, I got this, I got that. But this is the most valuable thing that you could do. And what you will find, the same as working out, taking that time to invest energy somewhere else will give you more energy throughout the day. The time that you take to invest in yourself, use those words very carefully, Jeff, the time you take to invest in yourself and your family, you're going to appreciate those times more. You're going to appreciate those skills more, the relationships more, all those things. And your time is going to appreciate.
Yeah, that's right.
It's beautiful. Jeff, question for you. What is your one thing? I know your one thing is the one thing.
Yeah, well, I think this is one of the greatest misunderstandings of the one thing. We all have more than one thing. I have multiple one things, yet I only focus on one thing at a time because success is sequential, not simultaneous.
So we shouldn't be multitasking, Jeff?
Bingo, right. So when we say, what's my one thing right now in my business? I can tell you, like, drop of a hat, gaining clarity on our value proposition. That's our one thing. Everything else is a distraction until we get really solid on what our value proposition is, because we never stopped and asked the question. We've done really well as a business, and we know to get to the next level, that's the lead domino, right? Yet at 5 o'clock today, my computer will be shut. I will be in my car driving home. And by 5:15, I'll tell you what my one thing will not be. It will not be being on my phone. It will not be checking email. It will be present with my family. So you look at all the areas of your life, whether it's your spirituality, your physical health, your personal life, your relationships, your job, your business, your finances. You can have a one thing for all of them. The question is, when you're at work, when you're in your professional career, are you focused on the one thing you can do such that by doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And when you are at home, are you focusing on the one thing you can do such that by doing it would make forming deep, meaningful relationships with those people easier or unnecessary? When it's time to hit the gym, are you focused on the one thing that you can do such that by doing it would completely transform your health? One thing at a time. Over time leads to extraordinary results.
That's a mic drop right there, Jeff. That's beautiful. It really is. And my favorite part about this whole thing is you're the guy who's done all this stuff so fast. You get this, and then your main priority is really about investing the time and taking the time in your life to do the things that are really passionate for you.
I will share. I've been very surprised by this journey, because what I expected to be a journey for professional growth has really become one about personal fulfillment. And I see this undoubtedly every single time we go into an organization to do training. The number of times I will stand in front of a sales force and we start walking through some of our models for gaining clarity on your time on a weekly basis. And there's always two sides of it. There's the professional priorities and the personal priorities, because there's no way you can remain inside your organization if you don't wake up every day and have everything you want by being there. That's why people leave. They wake up and they realize they can't have everything they want by remaining inside the world of that organization. And so what we work with, and this is part of our mission of transforming the way we view time from a corporate structure, how do we teach leaders to help their people get what they want by being in their organization professionally and personally? My partner and I sit down every Monday to do our 411. That's what our framework is for gaining clarity on your priorities. The first question he asks me every single week: how'd your Sunday finance meeting go with Amy, my wife? Because he knows that the one thing in my life that makes everything else easier and necessary is if my wife and I are on the same page about money. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't earn the right to get off that topic. How do you think I feel about my partner? The fact that he's willing, we could be talking about the business, but he chooses to invest our precious time together to make sure that my wife and I are on the same page with money. You think I ever leave? No freaking way.
No way.
So for the leaders who are listening to this, how do you become the type of person who takes a stand for your people's greatness, professionally and personally, when they might be fighting for their limitations?
It's powerful stuff, man. Really, really powerful stuff. And just having the power is in the vulnerability. The power is in the openness, and having somebody, a mentor, a manager, somebody that around you that you can trust and have that relationship. It's necessary to have that accountability to break these patterns.
I will say, since you went on vulnerability, and just because I know salespeople, how many of you have made the mistake, and you may not have even realized it, of as your income rised, you allowed your lifestyle to rise. And suddenly you find yourself in a position where you cannot take a step back financially because you're unwilling to take a step back in your lifestyle. I made that mistake in medical device sales. It took a colleague having a stroke and me almost running out of money to wake up. And transparently, I've made it again in this company. Episode 100 of the One Thing podcast, I sat down with a mentor and she interrogated my reality to the point that I'm on the podcast in tears, getting to the heart of what really matters. So I would strongly encourage, for those of you who are listening to this, and I know it's probably most of you, listen to that episode, because I think you will suddenly find that success is getting what you want. And until you have the conversations about the things that you're currently hiding from, nothing can change. Nothing changes until the unsaid has been spoken.
Mm-mm-mm. It's so true. You shine a light on those guilt. You shine a light on that shame by bringing it to somebody that you trust. You give away its power. You take away the power it ever had over you. It allows you to move past it so much more. Take Jeff's words here strongly. Like, look the way he uses and speaks with his mentor. And look at the way the mentor, a very, very significantly successful person, millionaire, wherever you want to go with the B, and however many millionaires you want to go up there. But this person takes the time to listen to the personal needs of his mentee and of his employees.
Yeah.
These are lessons that you don't get from books. These are lessons that happen in real life for people that are successful out there doing it.
Yep.
Jeff, really appreciate your vulnerability. I really appreciate the time, the few tips you gave me before the call, and I hope that we can catch up for a beer sometime here in Austin, since we're both in the same neck of the woods, man.
Would love to. It would be my pleasure.
All right, awesome. Jeff, one more thing before we go. I would love for you to share with our audience where they can follow you and learn from you more.
Sure. Our website's theonething.com. That's with the number one. The podcast is The One Thing. It's all spelled out, the ONE thing, just like the book. You can subscribe there. And for anybody, if you're in leadership and you're asking the question, how do I get my sales force to learn more like us? Visit the training page. You can see everything we do, from individual training to corporate training. It's a true game changer.
Really is. Get the book for sure. The book is a no-brainer. Personal life, professional life makes a huge difference. And the great thing about The One Thing, it can go in hand with other strategies. It's really a focused technique and strategy.
Oh yeah.
It's not something that has to stand on its own without everybody else. They really go well together.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Jeff, thanks a lot. That leads to growth. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.